have a co-star with me today. Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be doing kind of a 2021 book wrap up. Basically I'm just going to go through like stats of all the books that I read. I read 120 books in 2021, so I've got a lot of stuff to talk about. This will not be like my top 10 favourites or my top 10 least favourites. Those videos are coming, but this is just basically a kind of overall view of the books that I read. So yeah, if you are interested then please keep on watching, and if you do like the video please hit the like button, comment down below if you want to see more of these kind of videos in the future, and if you hit the notification bell you'll be notified every time I post a video. Yeah, let's just get into some pie charts because I love me a good pie chart. Alright. As I've said in previous videos, I have this huge spreadsheet that is just all of my books that I read last year, and then it's got things like page count, days to read, like the start day, end date, genre, age group, format, literally everything. So many different bits of information. Yeah, we're just gonna go over it all and see what my reading was actually like in 2021. So as I said, I did read 120 books. Now that ranged from physical actual books to audiobooks, ebooks, graphic novels. I kind of read a bit of everything last year and I really enjoyed it. I do like to kind of dabble in loads of different formats. But with that being said, my total pages read for this year was 44,318 pages, which is crazy because the most I've ever read like in my life before then was probably like 10 books a year. I did not do a lot of reading before. I always loved books, but I never really put away a lot of time to read, which is a shame really. It makes me think of all great books that I've missed out on, so that's why I'm reading with such fervour now, trying to catch up. The shortest book I read was Sour Candy, and that was only 84 pages. But that being said, that was a really good book. I really enjoyed Sour Candy. I think I gave it either 4.5 or 5 stars. Even though it was so short, it was fantastic. It was a horror and it was so spooky. I just loved it. I would definitely recommend it. I have spoken about it in the past. I think I spoke about it in my October Halloween recommendations video. I'm pretty sure. And then the longest book was another horror, and it was It by Stephen King, and that was 1,116 pages. That is the longest book I've ever read in my life, and it was hard going just because I have a very short attention span and I lost my way with it several times, I will not lie. It took me almost 4 months to read that book. It was the longest of any book that I spent reading as well. I started it on the 1st of September and I finished it on the last day of December. So yeah, 4 months to read it. And just because I kind of lost my way... Oh! Hey! Just because I lost my way with it, and then I would read other books in between. But I did really enjoy it, but it's just such a long book. It's such a long book. I did another little graph, because we love a good graph, and it was my books read each month throughout the year. Now you'll notice with this graph that one of the months is a little bit off. And that's because I decided to read 28 books in December. That was solely because I was trying to hit my Goodreads goal. I won't lie, it was 100% to hit that Goodreads goal. I was at 92 books at the beginning of December and I needed to read 120, like it needed to happen. I was only 2 books off the year before hitting that Goodreads goal, and I was like, no, I can't let it happen again. I need to hit it. A lot of graphic novels were read that month. I think I read 10 graphic novels in December. But yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. It was really nice to set a huge chunk of time to read. I did enjoy that. But then the rest of the months kind of averaged out between 7 to 12 books, which isn't bad. But this year I'm aiming for about 15 books per week because I thought 120 books wasn't enough. So I've decided to make my challenge this year 150. So that means I have to read 15 books per month. We are currently on the 2nd week of January and I've read 4. So it's going well. It's going really well. And then as of my 5-star reads per month, they kind of averaged out with the same amount of books that I read. Obviously the more books you read, the more likely you're going to have more 5 stars in that month. So like I said, in December I read 28 books, so I had 10 5-star reads, which I think even still that was a little bit too, I think I've been a little bit too nice last year with my ratings. I did this pie chart And I saw this on Books with Lala, and she did the same pie chart, and I was like, I really like that idea, I'm gonna do it. And it was basically rating the books from 1 to 2 stars to books I didn't like, 3 to 4 books that I liked, and then 4.5 to 5 books I loved. And as you can see, 44% of the books that I read were 4.5 to 5 stars, which is a lot. It's a lot of books. It's 53 books from this year that I gave that high amount. So I don't know if I'm too nice or if I just read a lot of really fantastic books, which in my opinion I really did. But that being said, I really struggle to rate books low marks. I have never in my life reviewed a book and gave it 1 star. Never. I just can't do it. I feel just so terrible. It will always get 2 stars or above because I can always find something that's like, well, you know, I didn't like this a great deal, but this was kind of good. And I'll always give it 2 stars. I just can't bring myself to do 1 star. So here we are anyway. Actually, for 5-star reads throughout the year, I actually had 38 5-star reads, which out of 120 seems like a lot. So I think next year I do need to be a little bit more reserved when handing out those 5-star reads. But that being said, if I just read really fantastic books, then I'm going to rate them 5 stars. Like, it just is what it is. So I spoke a little bit about this when I was talking about It and about how many days it took to read each book. I averaged out at about 13 days per book, which is quite long actually, and I was quite surprised at this amount. But then when I was going through all of like my start dates and end dates, I came to realise that I was reading so many books at one time that I would be finishing one like every other day, but it would take me like 6 times as long to finish the actual book because I was dabbling in so many. And I think I'm going to try and stop doing that as much in this year, in 2022. Just because I did kind of find as well that reading so many books at the same time kind of took away from each story, just because I wasn't completely immersed in that story. So yeah, I think this year I will kind of try and cut back on how many books I read at one time. But yeah, my longest, as I said, was 125 days, and that was it. Took me 4 months. 1st of September to the 31st of December. Literally 4 months to read a book. Outrageous, I know, but as I said, kept losing my way and then reading other books in the meantime. And then my shortest was just 1 day. I had loads of books that I read in 1 day. A lot of graphic novels as well, obviously, because they're much shorter. So as for genres of books I read, obviously the most popular was fantasy and horror. Those are my 2 top categories. I actually read a lot more fantasy than I did horror, and that surprised me because I thought that I read the same amount of both, but quite clearly I read a lot more fantasy. So I read 42 fantasy books this year. Although that being said, fantasy books tend to be more series related, whereas horror a lot of the time is just standalone. So probably that's why, you know, I'd read a full series and that's like 3 or 4 books, whereas I just read 1 horror at a time. I don't know, I'm just making excuses. But 42 books for fantasy and then only 25 books for horror, which I would definitely like to read more horror this year. 23 graphic novels, and that was severely bumped up by the 10 I read in December. I do know that. I feel like in a way I kind of cheated, but I didn't. They're still books, they still count as books. But yes, I did read 10 graphic novels in December, so that's probably why that number is so high. And then I read 13 contemporary books, which is actually a bit more than I thought it would be. And I'm not mad about that. I actually did enjoy the few contemporary books that I read. It was kind of a palette cleanser from the fantasy and horror, and I do enjoy them every now and then. And then all the rest, romance, non-fiction, historical fiction, sci-fi. I very rarely read sci-fi. Yeah, they're all kind of in the 1 or 2 category. They're obviously genres that I would benefit in branching out more into, and I have a lot of books that are in those genres, but I just tend to go for those fantasy and horror books. It's who I am, it's what I am, and it's what I enjoy. So if I can read more of those books, that would be great. But I want to actually enjoy my reading, and I don't want to force myself to read books that I would not enjoy at that time. That being said though, I definitely want to read more classics this year. That is something that is up high on my list of reading to-dos this year. I have a lot of classics on my shelves that I've never read, and I would definitely like to branch out more into that kind of genre. Then for the age groups for the books, This one actually surprised me because I thought I had read way more young adult books than I had adult books, but as you can see, it evened out very nicely. 44% of the books that I read were adult and 43% were young adult. That was really surprising to me actually. So yeah, 53 adult books, 52 young adult books. I was quite surprised, honestly. I would have thought that I would have read a lot more young adult books just because the books that are recommended on TikTok are more young adult novels on average. And that's where I get my recommendations, that's where I kind of get the books that I want to read from. But I'm really glad, I really am happy that I was half and half with the adult and young adult. I had 9 middle grades and 6 new adult books, which is good. Yeah, I'm really happy with the balance of those books. But I would definitely like that to be the same this year. Now for the authors of the books that I read, no surprise whatsoever, but 72% of the books that I read were from female authors. I knew that this was going to be higher. I do know that I read a lot of female authors and it's not intentional. I never pick up a book and be like, oh, that's written by a man, I don't want to read it. I don't judge a book on the author at all. Ever. If it sounds like a fantastic book, it's got a beautiful cover, I'm going to read it regardless of the author. But as I say, I do find that a lot of the YA fantasy are female authors, so it just so happens that I read a lot of those books and I end up reading a lot of female authors. So this year I would like to try and kind of balance that out a bit. I also had one non-binary author, which was Rivers Solomon, wrote Sorrowland, which was an arc that I got sent and I did really enjoy. I think I gave that 4 stars. It was a while ago now. That was in the beginning of the first half of the year. But yeah, I would like to kind of balance that out a bit and read a few more male authors, just to see if the writing style's a lot different. But no, I don't really decide the books that I'm going to read on the authors like ever. So if the book sounds good, I'm going to read it. Now for the format of the books, I read, as I say, a mixture of ebooks, audiobooks, physical, graphic novels, all that kind of good stuff. My actual physical versus digital ratio was like almost smack down in the middle. So 61 of the books that I read were digital, so ebooks and audiobooks, and then 59 were actual physical books that I was holding in my hands. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that, but I would like in the future to read a few more of my actual physical books. I think I really need to. I've read like 20% of the books on these shelves behind me and I'm really trying to get through them, but it's taking time, especially when I keep going for Kindle Unlimited or audiobooks on both Audible and Scribd, which if you don't know about Scribd, it's like a subscription service, kind of like Kindle Unlimited and Audible merged into one, and it's £10 a month and they have like hundreds of audiobooks and ebooks all on there that you can read as many as you want that month. Really good, really enjoyed it. 44 of the books that I read last year were ebooks. Majority of those were probably either Kindle Unlimited or books that I just bought on Kindle myself. I would say the majority of them were Kindle Unlimited, although I did go through a phase of buying loads of Kindle books in deals because they were like £1 each because my shelves were full. I then decided to buy ebooks instead. And then only 35 of the books I read were paperback, 24 were hardback. That's not surprising, I do own a lot more paperback than I do hardback, so I'm going to read more of those. And then 17 books were audiobooks. Now, I do think I want to branch out a little bit more into audiobooks. I would like to maybe do 2 a month, maybe, this year, just because it allows me to do a bit more reading while I'm doing chores, you know, like while I'm cleaning the house, walking the dog, doing my makeup, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I do want to branch out a little bit more into audiobooks. So if you could recommend some really good audiobooks, that would be lovely. I would, you know, any recommendations I'll take. This stat's kind of, this one, this one's going to be a little bit exposing to me. So, as I said, half and half were digital and physical that I read, but 34 of the 120 books I read this year were my own physical books that I needed to read. Only 34. I have like 400 plus books I need to read and I read 34. I got 17 books out of the library instead of reading books on my shelves. What does that tell you about me? Ugh, I'm such a mood reader and I'm such an impulse buyer. But yeah, it is what it is. Next year, this year, 2022, I really want to crack down on my physical TBR because I bought like 150 books this year and I read 34 of them. And that is ridiculous. So yeah, I'm really going to try and crack down on my physical TBR this year and really try and read my own freaking books that I have. Like, it's ridiculous. I got 17 out of Kindle Limited and 17 out of the library. What is that? I literally rented 34 books. Ugh, anyway. It is what it is, but yeah, this year I will definitely be trying to branch out more into actually reading my own books. And then my last pie chart is series versus standalone. This one really surprised me because I honestly figured I would read more series books, just because when you start a series, like, I like to read the whole thing, which means I could be reading like 4 to 5 books in one series. But I actually read 68 standalones this year, which is really surprising. I did not think I would be reading that many standalones. I honestly felt like I read more series than that. Hi. This is Jon Snow. So yeah, I would definitely like to branch out into more series versus standalones for next year. I want to really just dive into some big high fantasies. So yes, those have been all the stats that I could think of at the time. Sorry if this video is a bit boring, but I actually find it really interesting because it kind of delved into the books that I've been reading without even realising the trends that I've been doing, you know. And I really enjoyed it, and you know, who doesn't love the chance to make a good pie chart? I freaking love Excel and anything to do with like making charts and data. George always laughs at me because I have I have on here like so many different tables and charts and things for everything in my life, but I really enjoy it. So yes, that has been my 2021 book wrap up. I really enjoyed this video, and it was nice to reflect on all the books that I have read last year. It was a good reading year. I obviously had a lot of 5-star reads, so I will be doing that video next. Yeah, I am really sorry that this one, I was planning for this video to come out last week, but my camera decided to die just as I was getting into the flow of things. So my brother very kindly lent me his camera, which is what I'm filming on now, until mine gets fixed. So I'm filming like 4 videos today while I have his camera. So yeah, you will see a lot of this backdrop, I'm afraid. But yeah, I will hopefully see you guys in the next video, and I sincerely appreciate you sticking around and listening to me ramble on about books. I honestly just love every single one of you. The comments that I had on my last video, so many of them actually made me cry because they were just so wonderful and loving and heartfelt, and I just felt so like connected with you guys and so loved. Oh, I'm tearing up. I really do appreciate the love that everyone gives me on all my videos. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening to me, and I will see you all in the next one. Alright, bye guys.